Hello, I'm Nick Foulkes, and I'm here with these most amazing men. Seldom has there been such a gathering of scholars, and such ecumenical quality as well, because you're all rivals. I mean, I've got the plan here. It's very complicated. Helmut,
That's
Dr.
me.
Crott,
Yeah.
and Davide are rivals and advisors hunting top lots since the 1990s. Okay, Aurel and John, you were leaders of Phillips and Christie's. It's just like a boxing match. Aurel and Davide, Monaco legend, and Phillips, Bacs Russo, and Helmut, John, and Nick as authors of Patek Philippe literature, which we have here. But the real star is the 1518 Steel, #1. So, tell us, I think, maybe you could tell us a bit about it. You told it once already, haven't you?
Yes, thank you, Nick, for reminding me that we have actually no common commercial interests here.
But we are all friends.
We respect each other. Yes, it was in 2016 that I've had the pleasure to sell this watch once. Since then, it's been with the same very, very distinguished collector. The 1518 in steel, to me, has always been just a myth. I think it's when you speak to car collectors, they mention the 250 GTO.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the real Mona Lisas in wristwatches.
Good. Just to do a quick recap, it was 1941 it was launched, 281 pieces in total, only 4 of which are in steel. Is that correct?
For known.
Four known. What about the platinum one? Is that known yet?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, sorry if I may, the author of this distinguished book here is you.
You said what? Well, I don't
Said
want
what?
I think there's seven
Seven
cases.
Seven
Seven
steel
cases in steel.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
7
4 watches
cases.
appeared on the market.
Yeah, all
Okay,
four
so let's
watches.
say there are 4 on the market, of which this is #1, and it says so, which is engraved on the inside, right?
That's correct, absolutely. And I think what I wanted to say before is that you, who had, for the first time ever as a non-Patek Philippe employee, access to the archives, wrote that apparently they have asked either Vichy or Wenger, I don't remember,
Yes.
a stainless steel and pink gold case. We've never seen that watch. We don't know if it was ever sold. So I think there's still
treasures to find.
absolutely. We're busy for the
And
coming
look at these men who are the biggest treasure hunters around, I have to say. John, you've come all the way from America, haven't you?
Yes, just off the plane.
And tell me why you wanted to come here. What was so compelling for you about this?
You know what? Everything about what we do is about the people and about the watches. But first, about the people. Sitting here with all of you. And yes, many of us have been competitors at some point looking at you, Aurel. And it's just magic that we could still sit, we could talk, and we connect over these objects. And you always use the analogy, which I think you could do with this whole group. It's like a tennis match. Like when you're
I'm
on
the umpire.
field,
I'm the umpire.
you're the umpire. It could get quite violent at times. But you know what? You could have a drink at night, and you could always connect and talk about this. I think of it this way. It's like we compete for watches, but we all collaborate and work together with scholarship, and that's what's so much fun. So
I hate the word scholarship because it always reminds me of school. And
Yeah.
this is supposed to be fun, isn't it, Davide? You love it.
Absolutely,
I love
absolutely
school.
love it.
But tell me about hunting for a watch like this.
Well, I think the main reason why I'm here is because I had the luck of being a dealer for the last 40 years
Yeah.
before starting Monaco.
You started
Legend.
at age 12, didn't you?
No, unfortunately not. It was way over that. But I'm in the market since the end of 1985, so it's actually 40 years this year. And to be honest, I think I might pretend to be the only one that at once sold each of them when they were completely different prices and completely different value.
What was the least money you ever asked for one of these?
Oh, the least money was probably the one we have for sale today, and we handled the watch for a couple of million euro already.
Already in
euro,
1980?
Yes. No, it was in 2007.
Okay.
When the last buyer owned the watch. The other buyers were Italian entrepreneurs that had the luck to buy it when there was still not the euro
Yes.
going on.
The lira.
And the first one I bought, I paid $700,000.
So big money even then. I mean,
Oh, well, it was always big money for the watch.
But
I had the luck to share the property with this guy for a couple of watches.
tell me about that sort of double act of you two. Tell me, Helmut. What's
No, you know, with
That,
Helmut.
that is
Helmut,
the end of the story. There is a story before,
Helmut was one of my mentors, fortunately, I can say. And at the beginning of my career, I had the luck to find a couple of those watches together with him. He had access to a lot of international sources, more than me. And he liked me a lot when I was younger. then you are very nice when you are young. Then,
yes. Then it's Oedipus. There's almost
again.
it's almost Oedipus.
Now again.
It's almost like
Now that
Oedipus.
is only
The student has become the master. Yes, we don't like that, do we?
And,
No.
we found one that was in service in Patek Philippe. And he had an access, you remember, he had an access through a watch horloger over there.
Yes.
And we could handle to know who the owner was. So when the watch had finished the overall, we bought it in partnership.
Yeah.
We bought it in partnership, and at that time, we took the best chance possible. At that time, the best chance was to cross the river and to put it in Antiquorum.
Yes.
That it was at that time the most important auction house, the leader of the auction house. We are talking about 1995, 1996, this kind of...
there's a quick question on I hate the word scholarship, as I said, but what does being a Patek Philippe scholar mean to you, Aurel?
It's a very good question, Nick. Thank you. I think there's different ways of being a scholar. One way is to read all these books from the comfort of your living room, memorize every single reference, and just go to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and know which reference, how many pieces, and pink gold, and so forth.
But Peter Harrison told me that you did a great thing for his son. You showed him gave him a masterclass in 1518s.
That is very kind to hear. I think what really matters when you look at an 81-year-old watch is that you can say what you've seen before. How does it all add up? How does a watch feel when you open the case back? The sound of it, does it make click or kluk? The way a dial shines. There are 1,000 subtleties that go from snow white to silver to cream to off-white to ivory. The type of enamel on the dial, the way when you wind the crown or push the pusher, the sound, the click of it.
What did they call it? The seven silken seconds of Patek Philippe.
It's absolutely a personal experience, and it is possible that expert A thinks this is a 9 out of 10 condition, expert 2 thinks it's an 8.5 out of 10 condition. That is absolutely possible. But I think what especially those gentlemen have is that experience. That matters.
You've got the experience. I mean, you have the most experience of all of us, I'm afraid. So you're going to have to tell us a bit about what it's like to be sitting on probably the biggest reservoir of knowledge in your brain about Patek Philippe.
Well, Patek Philippe was always one of my favorite brands, of course, And I went to America. I mean, America was in the 70s, in the late 70s.
A great hunting ground.
Was for me the dreamland to find watches, And you saw a watch like this, you said, oh, you don't know the price, you have no idea. But you say, I never saw this, you know. And then somebody tells you a price and says, I want $10,000. You say, why is asking $10,000? The similar watch costs $7,000. Yes. But then you say, okay, my God, I've never seen this. Okay, what can I lose? I can lose $2,000 or $3,000. So I take it, So we had no literature, we had no information.
That's what's so good, because everybody now is an instant expert because of the internet. And you actually wrote the preview for the books. I mean, you've done everything. What is it like to the difference now between now and then when you were just going blind into it? What was it like? What was the feeling when you came across things? Was it like coming across Tutankhamun's tomb or something like that?
Well, I think I'm a watch lover, of course, and I'm a watch dealer and a consultant, and you have to be all of three. If you are just a dealer, and somebody tells you 10,000, you say it's too expensive, you know. You must have the passion. You must have the passion, and then you buy this watch and you say, I want to have it, you know.
Yeah.
I want to have it, you know. So the difference between maybe in the last 20 years, and as I said in the beginning, when I saw these watches first time in America in a show, lying in a display cabinet, that I was buying by intuition and by love, you know.
Yes.
So they... Aurel says, I take this and I take this. I said, open the watch and look, okay, the case is signed Patek Philippe, the dial is signed Patek Philippe, the movement is signed Patek Philippe.
So you're led to believe it's a Patek Philippe, in other words.
Yeah, no.
because
I'll tell you one story. I bought one watch like this. I didn't know anything, you know. I paid a lot. I didn't sleep for nights. I came back to Europe. I went to Patek Philippe in the workshop, and I met Mr. Philippe, Roger Dubuis. I said, Roger, I bought this watch for so much money. Can you tell me something about it? He said, yes, we made 3 of them. And I was happy, you know. I said,
Thank
okay.
goodness for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, Davide, why does this watch matter? Why does this 1518 in steel matter?
Oh, well, because for me, but for the community, 1518 is the grail of the watch collecting. You know, 281 watches made, 10 years only of production, only 4 watches known in steel appeared on the market anyway. I think the 1518 is the desire of every experienced collector that come across the vintage market. For me, it was always the dream. I started when those watches, they costed much less, especially the gold one, the simple model.
How much did the gold one set you back?
The gold one, the first watch I could afford was $60,000.
$60,000?
$60,000 at the end of the 80s. It was anyway, for me, a lot of money.
Yes.
I was starting my business, 87, 88, and for me to afford a $60,000 watch, you know, at that time with $60,000 you could buy 25, 30 Rolex, Patek Philippe, Longines, anything. To buy only one watch for 60,000, it was anyway, like Helmut wanted to say, a kind of a risk. You know, you were putting a lot of your money, and I sold it for 80,000 in 2 days.
And you thought you
I brought it back from America immediately, and you know, I made actually for me a big percentage of profit at that time to buy at 60 and sell it at 80. So I folded in completely in love. I was already in love with the watch market. As far as I can remember, I always wanted to be a watch dealer, and you know, for me to start and to see that Italy was an incredible market of big entrepreneurs that were in their booming age of the 50s and 55, you know, the most important guys that I met in that period, and to see that they were so aggressive in buying, of course it made explode my passion, my interest, and of course also there was, you know, the look of transform it in a very profitable business, you know, to be completely honest.
John, I mean, it's important because it's the first series produced Patek and the chronograph. It's become a signature for Patek, everything, and it's become a signature for that type of watch altogether. What is the significance for you, and why is the 2499, the successor, is that more valued in the auction? I mean, I'm not talking about this watch, but I'm talking about the standard gold ones.
I think when we look at the 1518, we look at where it all began. I mean, it's the first perpetual calendar chronograph. And afterwards, of course, the 2499, and now the 3970 is like bringing price points that we saw just a few years ago with the 2499. And then we wonder what happens next with the 5970 and the 5270 in the future, because
you forgot the 5020.
Oh, the 5020, the cushion shape, yes, it belongs in that lineage too.
It does belong. It's the kind of
compliments, Nick.
Yes,
compliments.
No.
Very good point.
So we're talking about this is where it all began, and these are living objects, and I think we could all appreciate. I think, well, speaking to two of you in particular, you've seen these living objects. You've found them like fresh to market. Of course, you have too, Aurel, and it's just so magical when these pieces appear for the first time, and then that knowledge that you know where they were and where they've been and where they're going is so key. And I think for the collecting world, knowing where the watches were, where they are, and where they go in the future is so important. So it's not just about the watch itself, it's about the people behind it. And I think that's what's so rich. And when we're together talking, we're talking about the people at the end of the day. but we're studying the watch. And that's when scholarship comes in.
Yes, a scholarship,
forensics.
the dreaded scholarship. But with this, is rarity enough to make it something legendary, or does it have to have a story with it? Helmut?
I'm not sure if I got your question, but what is interesting, we have 4 of these watches, you know. Known, yes. We have other steel watches of the same period, like the 1591, which is a little bit later.
Yes.
The 1591 with the center of second perpetual calendar. We have the 1526, the only piece ever made
in steel,
you know. But the problem is there are only one, and they are sold now. They are in the museum. There is no market, you know. Here we have a market, you know.
Yes,
the watch comes up every 5 or 10 years, and it makes maybe.
But are we talking about a market for these 4 watches, or for the 281 of which these 4 are part?
Maybe another thing.
Helmut wanted to express the concept that you cannot build a market of something that is unique.
No. Of course you can't, because you've only got one. You want enough to excite interest, but not so many that it's cheap.
The Ferrari GTO is the most important Ferrari because there are 33 cars that they change owner every 3, 4, 5 years, and one appears on the market. And there's always a new guy, a new very important and rich billionaires that can afford to buy one of these garages.
And thank God for them, I must say. Otherwise, we'd all be out of work.
What is also interesting, I don't know if this was part of your question, when we first bought these watches in the late 70s, this watch, for example, my friend Francois Murray, he offered me a watch like this for 7,000 Swiss francs, and nobody wanted it, you know. He went to Italy, to the biggest collector, and said, "Here I have a steel." And he said, "No, we want the gold one." The gold one was, the yellow gold one was more expensive than the steel one, and the pink one was maybe 10-20% more expensive than the yellow gold one.
Pink on pink.
So that was in the beginning, and then in the late 80s we saw that this watch became much more valuable, or price-wise up, because the people knew now that there were only 4, and and the pink one maybe 50. Yeah. So the price changed with the knowledge we had about these watches. You know.
So, Aurel, tell me a bit about this watch, because this is number one, 1944. It was sold to a Hungarian dealer, I believe, a Hungarian jeweler, and they two of them went to Budapest, didn't they?
Absolutely, it was. There were 2 ways we could put the puzzle together. That the 2 first examples were indeed delivered in February 44 to Budapest. One, because it popped up in Vienna at a trade show, and it came from the family of the original owner, which is this one.
When was that?
In the mid-90s.
So it was in the same family?
Yes.
And you know the family?
No, I'm afraid not.
You know the name?
No, I don't know.
But it was in the same family. So
and I was
fully
pitching
documented.
for the watch. Yeah. And a German, very, very established dealer, the late Karl Brunner, he was able to secure that watch. So I missed that watch in the mid-90s. From Karl, it went to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
From you, it went to a very important collector in
Italy.
In Italy.
Kept it a long time.
And the rest is, I think, all in the wonderful history books and Hodinky articles and so forth and so forth.
And your catalog.
And in my catalog. The second one also came from Hungary. Again, it popped up in Vienna. I was called, how much would you give? I think there were some middlemen who were just a little on the greedy side. Yeah. It went to the auction house that still carries your good name.
Yeah, but this as another story. I got a phone call from a jeweler friend who was in a store in Heidelberg, in a jewelry store, and the family, Hungarian family, had this watch and went in this jewelry store and said, "How much do you give for this watch?" And at least he said 50,000 in the 2014.
Was it Deutschmarks or something?
2040. So my friend jeweler called me and said, "Helmut, there was this watch." I said, "Come on, tell me where." And I got A day later, I get a phone call from my successor from my auction house, Stefan Muser. He says, "Helmut, how much can I offer as a reserve, as a reserve price for a 1518 in steel?" So he didn't know that I already knew, So at
It
that
seems
time,
we were all after the same watch.
What's it like? What's it like? Is it like a big game hunter? Is this your sort of?
This is really the truth. What you already understood is that the most thing that related the four of us
Yes.
and the most excitement that we all had for all our life, and that's why we are so keen on those watches and everything that appears on the market that is unknown, is that you want to be a watch hunter. The watch hunting is the best way to express your passion about watches and horology in ever. So this is everything, is to find something that has never been on the market, to find something that nobody else has seen. Today that I actually joined an auction house and I do this. I try to do this job, and I try to copy what Aurel did in his life.
We all try to copy what Aurel's done.
Of course, that's our life, that's our destiny.
It is our destiny.
But it's okay. For me, it's really nice, and I really understood. I've made the watch hunter for 35 years, going around the world searching for the watches to give to the auction house. And today, on the other side, people offers me the opportunity to have in the first choice very few times, honestly, after Phillips, Sotheby's, Antiquorum, and Christie's, but I get the chance to be offered also the best watches for sale, And also, as a pleasure, I have the opportunity to search in the collections that I handled and curated for the last 40 years. That's most probably the good reason of my little success, But the watch hunting is the best.
And you're adding. I mean, looking at these men, you're adding. Do they add story? Do they? Because you're the youngest man around the table, right?
Yes.
You're a child. You look like your younger, better-looking brother. But you. For you as a young man, I mean, looking up to these guys, do they add to the story of the watch for you?
Absolutely. And to say I look up to all of you is an understatement. And I think every generation of collectors, and you could think the collectors before you, the mentors that you've had, you've learned some, you've made it your own, and we're all passing it on to another generation now. And that's what's so beautiful about our marketplace, is it doesn't exist in a specific place in time. There's always more to learn. Every day, I think we're all learning something new.
Absolutely.
We're learning how to look at watches differently. We're learning how to interpret the history differently. And then when the watches appear that we haven't seen before, it just like blows our understanding of what we thought we knew is the truth, is what makes it so much fun. So we're hunters for watches, but we're hunters for knowledge at the same time.
I mean, what about collecting today? Is it about the object? Is it about the people? Is it about the provenance? Is it about the story? What is it about? I mean, it's a mixture of all of them, I imagine.
Exactly. It is everything. It may shock not only the good friends here on the table, but the viewers at home, if I say collecting watches is not something you do because it makes sense. You do it because you love it. I mean, your heart is pulled towards a watch. Now, why would you love a watch when every electronic device tells you the time and so forth? It's the details, the finish. If you study that watch with a loop and you think that this disc that is the size of a 5 Swiss franc coin has been hand engraved by a specialist of Stern Cadran some 80 years ago, and he really, Patek Philippe Geneva, had to engrave it and then fill it with enamel. It is unbelievable the emotions it gives you comparing it to today's mass-produced objects. The history. Can you imagine what Budapest looked like in 1944 in February? Yeah. Besides the fact that it was probably freezing cold. Yeah. But I think the German army retreating on one side, the Soviet army coming from the east. Why were there 2 watches made for a gentleman called Joseph Lang, who I believe was a retailer, but we have really very little information. This journey, where this watch has been, in which great collection it's been, its beauty, and I think the stainless steel 1518 is possibly the most beautiful watch in the world. It's more substantial than the gold one. It's more humble looking, but it has more heft to the proportions. I think everything adds up that a watch like this at the end is a 10 out of a 10, an Olympic winner in watch collecting.
A grail. How many times do I hear the word grail? What do you think of that? When you say grail, what do you think? What do you think of?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
What do you think when the word grail is handed out?
well, no, we are not talking about the Grail. We are talking about the Grail of the Grail of the Grail. You know, the 1518 is of course a magic for our collectors. Also with the stories around. The last story about this watch, which ended up in the auction house, in my auction house, we didn't finish up, you know. So, for example, these people went to this jewelry store, then they went to my successor, and my successor called me and told me, "Yo, Helmut, I have this watch." And I said, "And how much?" I said to him, "Now it brings 1 million." He said, "Yes, I offer 250,000." And I said, "And where's the watch?" "Other people left, you know." I said, "Are you crazy?" You know. So actually, they came back. They came back. So I mean, these watches have so many stories, as you say, and that makes a part of the magic of this 1518. But in complication, the grave super complication is a different story, you know.
Of course,
it's a complete
everybody
different story,
has his
you
own
know.
grail, you know. It depends on your taste. It depends on what you like and what you demand to your collection and to you as a collector. Everybody, you know, builds this passion and decide what is his grail. I have friends who their grail is one of the nicest Paul Newman in steel they ever seen, you know, because they like Rolex, they like the style. They're maybe younger. They lived that 1970s differently than other people, and so. You know, the grail is when you reach the complete satisfaction of living together with your passion and wearing something that
You never reach that place. You never reach that place. You never reach that
every
place.
time you look at your wrist, you get an emotion.
Yeah, I mean that's a great thing. You just think, wow, this is in my care for the time being. That wasn't. You avoided answering the question though. What's your grail?
It changes daily.
Okay, Aurel, what's yours?
I think amongst the top 1, 2, 3 watches in the world, it is for me a stainless steel 1518. There are other grails. Some watches can be rather boring when it comes to the history, but from a mechanical point of view, blow my brain.
Yes.
There are watches that look extremely humble and are maybe humble, but the story just beats it all. Think Paul Newman. But why, from a historical point of view, and let's not forget the books we have here on the table, it was mentioned that until the 20s, Patek Philippe made a handful of complicated watches at most per year. A few single buttons, a few calendar watches in either officer cases or cushion shapers. Everything imploded with the Great Depression.
Yes.
Then in the 30s, when the 130 chronograph was launched, this sort of very elegant Calatrava shape found its birth. And then in World War II, Patek Philippe comes and dares making such a watch in series.
It's extraordinary because John Fister was the technical director, and he gave us the reference 96, didn't he? But what? I mean, he must. I mean, there's a lot of clockwork going on in there, isn't there? I mean, you've got the perpetual calendar module from Victor and Piguet. You've got is it a Valjoux base?
Yes, 13 line.
I mean, what? Just give us an idea of how they would be doing that in the war.
Well, and I hope nobody, especially at Patek Philippe, minds me saying it, but I think the historians agree. Most companies, and Patek Philippe is no exception, back then did not have their own ébauche, that means the raw movement, for such a watch. Which is why you mentioned correctly, Valjoux supplied them with the ébauche. Then they went to Victor and Piguet in the Jura, and they added the perpetual calendar plaque underneath the dial.
Which is very thin, isn't it?
It has to be thin, otherwise we wouldn't have such an elegant watch. Then you had to go to a dial maker, in this case Stern, with the numbers scratched on the back, etc. for this watch. Then you had to go to the case makers. There were Taubert, Wenger, Vichet, the great case makers, Croisier.
Did Croisier make this case?
The first 3, absolutely.
Okay.
Whereas the one that is the outlier that you two found, I think is a Wenger case? Yeah, that came from the Middle East, if I'm not mistaken.
Egypt.
Egypt.
There's the dodgy Farouk one, isn't there?
It was a prince, Egyptian prince.
The Prince Fekri, what's his name?
I actually, we never knew the name.
In any event,
it was beautifully well kept, though, wasn't it?
I think this is one of the world's most important watches of all times. not only has it influenced 80 years and will probably for another 80 years influence the basic logic and layout behind a perpetual calendar chronograph. 2 windows above the center, moon and date at the bottom at 6 o'clock, 2 registers left and right, pushers at 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Still the 5278 decades later looks like this.
Yeah.
But do you think that it ends with Patek Philippe? Go around and look at all the great brands that I'm not mentioning now, but it's also fair to say the Kili design is also based on this, with a Valjoux 72 movement this time. So this is a Adam and Eve moment for complicated watches in the post-war decades. To have the rarest iteration of it, then we're back to the world we don't like. Greg.
I'm just interested. Talk about. I mean, it's in great condition. How has it survived 81 years like that? And what is in your view, Helmut, acceptable in terms of restoration, and what is spoiling the watch?
If you can, you don't do the restoration. You know.
Yeah.
In general, it's better not to do the restoration.
When it's cleaning a
but
dial.
there is a limit.
Yes.
There's a limit, you know. And then there is the question. There is the question: you do it authentically, like they did it with the same
tooling, same material,
paper, with the same stamp, with the same the same tools and the same way to do it. That is second. But then to know that you have to stop if you can. You say, shall I do this or shall I not do it? So the real expert says, no, I don't touch this, I don't do this, you know, and to know where to stop, you know. So first is, if possible, not to touch. Second, if you have to touch, you have to know how far you go. And the third thing is to do it in the right way, like authentic, like it was done in the 1930s and the 1940s, you know.
I mean, how do you identify what screws are correct and what screws are incorrect? I mean, this is just experience, isn't it? But in this watch, could you tell if there's a non-1944 part?
It's a very good question. Watches like motor cars, and Davide and I share this passion, though at a very different level, there are parts you obviously consume with wear.
Yeah.
So no car specialist has ever cared if the tires are original.
Sure.
And I think an exhaust is not that important either. And the bumper, but you know more about this. I think there are essential parts that that have to be original. Mm-hmm. And this is where in a car it starts with the engine and the gearbox and the chassis. Yeah. Here, the key components are case, dial, and movement.
And
first,
matching.
That's the point, that they're matching. The case is fully numbered, and of course we have access to the Patek Philippe archives. Then they issue an extract when all the numbers are matching. The movement itself, the bridge, is numbered. Now, if a screw fell out in 1960 while somebody serviced the watch, oh, where is it? Let me call my friends at Patek Philippe and find an identical screw. By all due respect, this has zero impact on the originality, because not only none of the specialists here, but not even the watchmakers at Patek Philippe will know if an identical 1944 screw was exchanged against another one, if it's right or wrong. Then comes the condition. You can polish a watch, you can clean a watch. It may shrink, and we have all seen what an over-polished 5019 looks like. The hallmark disappears, the pinholes get worn. Yes. But the key parts need to be preserved, and the key parts need to be preserved in as much as close to new original condition. That any silver dial can oxidize is normal.
Yes.
That any case may have nicks and may benefit from a satin finish is normal. But once that you go beyond, then comes the question that Helmut raised, which is why I'm so delighted that the watch is in this amazing condition here, that I think we can say this is an all-original 1518 in steel.
That has not been polished?
I'm sure it has seen a polish or two, no doubt. How would it It would be a miracle if it survived 80 years without
you are
a
the man
satin
of miracles.
finish.
You are the man of miracles.
There are different ways of polishing.
Well, what do you mean? What's the least intrusive way of polishing a case? Would you say?
Well, you know, when I went to Patek Philippe in the 90s,
Yes.
with a rare watch, and I went to the watchmaker in the store,
Yes.
and we discussed, okay, shall we polish, shall we not polish? And then, okay, maybe it needs a polish. And there are 10 polishers in Patek Philippe,
Yes.
and there is one is very good, one is less good, and one is not good, you know.
Okay.
So I said, go to that man, you know, and you stay next to him and you say, stop, you know, and don't tell him to go in the machine, you know, you have to tell them exactly what to do and how far to go, you know, and you have to know the people, you know. Well, wait, no.
Well, I mean,
It's actually also a big matter of taste,
Yeah.
depending on the collector that the watch goes, because every collector has a different taste. So, you know, it depends. During the period, during the last 40 years, the way of collecting of customers has changed a lot.
everything used to be polished in the 80s, didn't it?
Actually, it's not so true. I was buying watches for collectors, especially Italians, that they didn't want to touch anything. The more the watch was scratched or the dial was aged, they were so happy to see all the history of the watch inside. But there were other kind of collectors that actually, in the same period and with the same wealth, but actually they wanted to see the watch completely polished and completely new. It's a matter of taste.
What do
Today we have
your
Helmut
customers?
Crott
What do your
here.
customers say?
Before I answer that, I want to discuss the Patek Philippe Museum.
Okay.
Because I just had
We
a
love the Patek
realization.
Philippe Museum. We love that.
The museum doesn't have a steel 1518. True?
Correct.
I don't think they have
They don't.
one of the four, which is extraordinary in itself. And number two, coming back to your question about condition, I think we can all agree, because we've all spent hours and hours at the museum, almost every single vintage piece in the museum has been restored. Some arguably heavily restored, some moderately restored. But they're restored because, I'm coming back, they're living objects again. The dials have organic compound, the oils are organic compounds, and things change and evolve over time. And the museum's philosophy is to preserve for 100, 200 years from now. And I think the collecting community is doing the same. They accept that these, if you took this watch and just left it in this tray for 100 years, bad things would happen. This has to be preserved and cared for over time.
And you say maintained as a living thing.
It's a living thing. And I think a lot of people forget that when they're looking under a scope at 100 times.
Talking about looking under a scope, how does one recognize a hard enamel dial? And actually, what is a hard enamel dial?
Here's the man who wrote the book.
The man who wrote the book.
Yeah.
I refer you to my book, Le Cadran. But for the
No,
sake...
okay, you take a needle and you go, if you want, you go on the enamel and you scratch and it's like a glass, you know, you
See,
go, boom, you know. If you have it as a lacquer or as an imprint,
Yes.
you go with a needle in there and you see there is a dot in there, you know, for example, you know,
Okay.
this is one thing. But also, aesthetically, like people who have seen many, many of these watches from the same period, you know, you right away have feeling something is wrong if it is printed or if it is not anymore enameled, you know. You have the feeling
But that's a sort of not muscle memory, but it's something that you can do intuitively. Without actually, you can just tell there's something wrong about this.
Yeah, also it's also intuition, you know. But if you go with a loop, you see the metal.
Yes.
Because after they have done the enameling,
Yes.
they go with the emery paper,
Yes.
you know, and then the enamel goes over the metal, and you see you see between the metal and between the enamel, you see this kind of comment s'appelle l'ensanche. Yeah,
Raising.
Yeah, raising. You see this.
Raising the-
You see this raising. Yeah, you see this raising.
No, basically the fact is that the dealers
Yes.
discovered at the beginning of the 90s that Patek Philippe and few other watchmakers were the only one who adopted this technique of indelible printing. And actually it's something that Rolex, for example, never made. It means at that point we invented a word that was a word that defended all the market from any kind of judgment, and we invented washed. We invented the word wash dial and not wash dial. washed basically doesn't mean anything, because those dials, they don't go under a car wash machine, you know, to be cleaned. But basically the procedure that you make to restore the cleaning and the shining of the dial, it's a kind of washing, you know, because the indelible remains if it's traced or if it's raised, but you can clean the dial and the indelible when the procedure is made by Patek or by Vacheron in certain kind of watches and maybe very few of Audemars, the indelible always remains. And you can wash the dial and you don't affect the originality of the dial. You affect the condition. So the dial has no more the vintage aged patina that you can see on watches that have been never touched, like the watch that the successor of Helmut sold in his auction house, you know, the watch that he was discussing before.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, we all know that that's the watch that got less kind of restoration ever, because the watch, if you look at the dial, is full of little scratches, is full of little spots, and this is the age, you know, the age, you see it. We have Helmut Crott here. This is a completely unrestored man. You see it? It's in the original condition. But if Helmut wants to date a 25 years old girlfriend, he has to make all the hair, they have to be black. He has to make some lifting, you know. He has to make probably some diet, which I need also. And this is a matter of taste. You can do it on a watch if you want to do it, or you can leave it with the living patina that it had for all the time, and you keep a watch that is completely unrestored. My opinion, from my experience, there are 281 1518 made. I actually sold more than 80 watches in my career. I have to tell you that in 80 watches, I found probably, I would say, and I'm not exaggerating, no more than 5 watches that were absolutely in the original condition since they left the factory. Because otherwise it's impossible. 80 years old watches, they cannot be in new condition. This is something very clear that the market, the collectors, the community, they have to understand. Otherwise, they will not be able to love and to understand and to see the history of the pieces that they are looking at.
I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to ask you, really, with this thing, how important is it to...
You wanted to say bella uomo, bella figura.
Completely unrestored.
He's the man. He's the man we need to look. He runs marathons. He's the great fitness freak here. But Aurel, I want to know, how important do you think it is to come and look at this watch yourself? I mean, you've got so many people on the internet now, and they can have high resolution pictures. They have pictures of 1 terabyte, which you can go into until you see almost a molecular level. What is the important? You use this word charismatic sometimes in your catalogues, and this is a charismatic watch.
Well, if you ask me,
yes,
I don't think anybody should comment or make even an assumption without having seen the watch in person. We have, thankfully, some extraordinary relationships with collectors who by now understand exactly what we mean with dark yellow, dark champagne, ivory colored patina, whom we can guide across the planet, across oceans, on watches worth millions. That is a privilege. But it took us tens and tens of years ourselves to get in sync with the language that we both speak. To me, how many times have I seen a watch where a client sends in an email, hello, we've got this watch in our family, and you think, ooh, that's not a pretty example, whatever, 10,000. Okay, I'll send it in. You open the parcel, oh, my goodness, this is in so beautiful condition. It just was a poor lighting when he took the picture. But also the opposite happened, that a watch looks great and is maybe not as good at the end when you get it.
Well, this is also photogenic, but it's also great. I can reassure you, viewing at home, this is a great condition piece as well. It's fantastic to look at.
The thing with dials, by the way, these dials are often silver dials. Anyone who has from their grandmother silver cutlery knows that you use it one Sunday and a month later they're turning black. Now, there is of course a protective layer on these dials, the zapon, that help the dial not to become black as quickly as the silver from the grandmother. But the that's a chemical reaction. That is not a physical thing. That's a chemical thing. That is something that I think most 1518s, you mentioned probably not even 5% or so of the watches you've handled, you have to know that a dial that you never deoxidize in 8 years will be anywhere from grey to black.
Okay. That's a sobering thought for all of us.
But that means that no one's family silver at home is restored.
No, it's cleaned.
It's been cleaned.
Yeah. What if imagine the most terrible thing in the world, that there was no 1518 in it. What would be the 1518 if there were no 1518?
Wow. I'm a passionate of older watches also. So for me, the beginning of the period of Patek Philippe complicated the Calatrava with the moon face.
1925, the one.
1928, 1930, and single button chronograph, either they're round or cushion shape. For me, those watches are incredible, and they really express the real manufacture of Patek Philippe. And you have to consider that the 1518 and the 1526 were the first perpetual calendar that they decided to produce in series.
Yes.
When they started, they really want to make many. In fact, they made 281 of those and 175 of the other.
Out of quite a small production of watches anyway in those days.
Yeah, but because the manufacturer was really above the other. You don't find a single button split second version. Maybe they made one or two watches,
and same with AP.
Audemars Piguet, maybe they made 2 or 3 single button in the life. Patek Philippe was already the manufacturer for the big wealth of the world, and they were expressing their, they were already ahead of their time.
Yes. Helmut, what do you think? What if there were no 1518? What would be the 1518?
Well, the 2499.
But without this, the 2499. The 2499.
There couldn't be a 2499.
No, there couldn't be 2499. There couldn't be 24.
Exactly.
We're living in an alternate
you are
world.
actually an expert and a very important man of this community. You know the history of horology much more than that. We have to go back probably in the 19th century, or in the 18th century, and that you can find so many grails that actually at the end, we feel very small to show the 1518 tonight.
No, we're talking about the Grail, This watch is, first of all, a classic,
Yes.
And you have many watches, and a classic means that is a reception which is accepted by long-term collectors and the generations by generations, and this is a classic of the classic, and then it's a Grail of the Grail, And the other one, the 2499, we like also, but as you said, it is coming after that,
Absolutely.
But we were discussing this earlier this afternoon, Aurel. What do you think? Because 2499s, they tend to sometimes get higher prices than 1518s, don't they?
It's a very good question. Why are we having so much love, and I share your love, of course, for the 2499? And when I started getting into watches, the 1518 was all the hype.
Okay.
Then, and I'm not saying now it's the fault of Panerai and the fault of offshore Royal Oaks, people started to get used to larger diameters.
Yes.
And at one point with a 37+ millimeter diameter and more voluptuous, more outgoing lugs and maybe round pushers, in the late 90s and maybe in the 2000s, the 2599 just took off.
Yes.
Because it was just perfect for the 21st century collector. Our good mutual friend, whom we all esteem, John Goldberger, he always said, the 1518 is the mother of them all.
And it's the connoisseur's choice, you think?
The connoisseur's choice. And now in recent seasons, but it's only a matter of seasons, both you and I had yellow gold 1518s hammering at over $1 million.
And what just to give an idea of the price.
Because people realize now this is the Adam and Eve moment of complicated wristwatches, and how rare it is to get a good example, a clean, an original,
and incredibly
yellow,
incredibly well documented. This is incredibly well documented. I was just wondering, John, what would you have as your Grail if there were no Grails?
If we didn't have a 1518, I think I would have to go with the 725.
Okay.
I love pocket watches, and I don't think there would be a 1518 without the 725. And this is the perpetual calendar pocket watch, and it came in four different versions. So for me, that is a watch that I truly adore. And one thing that's really special about pocket watches in general, they're often kept in drawers for generations. So we get to see true new old stock. And that is really magical and helps educate our eyes when we're looking at wristwatches, which are out in the sunshine, out in the elements in a different way.
John makes a very good point. At the very same time, in the late 30s, early 40s, the 725, the reference 600, the reference 600 HU with the world time.
Oh, the world time one, that's a lovely one, yeah.
There were pocket and wristwatches as an alternative available with similar functions, with perpetual calendars, chronographs, world times.
There was a time, I think it was in the 30s, when there was exactly half and half. I mean, and then the wristwatch went up, and then
that is true. I remember in the first wristwatch by Pfeiffer-Belli book, that was my first really expensive book in the mid-80s. He had a graph showing how since World War I, the wristwatch grew in popularity. The pocket watch export numbers from Switzerland came down. And I think it's in 32 where they meet the two lines. And that's when Switzerland made more wristwatches than pocket watches.
Okay, we've kept you people at home far too long, so we're just going to go around with a quick fire round to finish with. If you had one word to express the 1518, what would you use? Helmut. One word.
One word. I would buy it restored too.
Well, okay, that's more than one word. One word.
The true love of my life.
Okay, that's more than one word.
Dream.
Majestic.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a marvellous evening. You're brilliant, all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Okay.